Hey everybody, it's Piranha Z06 coming to you from my downtown condo man cave, and I've got a huge list of upgrades and mods for you today. Some I'm very excited about, some are just minor tweaks to things I already had, but I'm really excited about this. And the tagline here is, so many mods that I broke my rig. So the very first thing I want to show you is something that did break on my rig and how to keep it from happening to you. So let me show you. Okay, so here are two corner brackets that, as you can see, this one is totally broken out and this one was about to break. And I'll show you where these were on my rig and what caused them to actually give way. But the root cause of this is, what I've figured out is, in buying different things for your 80/20 rig, you may get subpar parts. Not subpar, just different that you need to pay attention to. So here's two different socket cap bolts. And as you can see, one of them is a lot thicker than the other one. The lip, as you can see, is a lot bigger on one than the other. And so I had used these small ones and had tightened down pretty good because I was using them to mount the casters on my heavy rig. And so I had tightened down on them pretty good. But as you can see on this one, the bite points, there's not a lot of surface area there. And so tightening down on those and then a little bit of stress the wrong way caused them to give way, and this one to totally rupture. And as you may know, these things are not solid metal. There's some kind of cast metal shaving flakes of some kind held together somehow. And you can tell that from the sound they make, and very, very lightweight. And that's fine as long as you know how to mitigate those risks. So yes, please, if you're gonna use, or if your parts come with something with a smaller lip, just use a washer. And I had some washers that came with something that had these smaller bolts, obviously, but I didn't use them in this case. And so that, as you can see, gives a lot more surface area to that pressure and will probably keep it from breaking. So that was the first thing. I just wanted to give a word of warning for that. Hope that doesn't happen to you like it did me. So let's get on to the litany of things that I have added to my rig since the last video. So one of the first just simple things I did was I replaced the sound deadening pucks under the actuator post holders with hockey pucks. I just wanted to try it, see if it worked better or worse. I had a few laying around, had to buy one for $3, so put those in place, and they actually do make the rig feel better. I guess what I had used before were a little too soft and were, dampening out some of that motion, especially the vibrational type motion, or the quick, bumper curb strikes, or NASCAR tracks that are bumpy, things like that. So this really does liven up the motion rig some, so I think I'm going to keep them. So that's the first little thing. I'll go ahead and show you where those corner brackets broke. And let me grab my flashlight because it's kind of dark back in this corner. So there is one of the casters that I have mounted, and you can see I have one corner bracket on this side and one on that side. And that's the way I had it configured, and that's where they broke. So, and they both broke, the one completely and the one cracked. So I now have washers, so it shouldn't happen again, and I didn't tighten down so tight, still nice and snug. But then I also had this one other corner bracket that you can see is different, and it's different than, I don't even remember what part it came with, but I never used it because it was so different and I couldn't put an end cap on it. And so I always kept it separately, but it is solid metal. It's not the composite. So I added it to this corner. Obviously this corner got some stress that the others didn't. So now I have 3 here instead of 2. And now that I have room, because of a different mod that I'll cover next, I couldn't mount this where the post came out perpendicular to the arm, so I had to mount it parallel. But now that I have room back here, as you can see, my PC table is no longer here. I might remount this perpendicular now, as is this side. So as you can see, this one comes out this way and there's plenty of room. So now that I have room, I can do that. But before, with the PC table that I had in place, there wasn't room to do both of those this way. In fact, the one over here was mounted about 8 or 9 inches inboard, further down that way, just so that the table legs had clearance. Because this whole thing moves, there needed to be some clearance. But now this is not the case because I have a PC mounted shelf now on my monitor stand. So this is one of the things I'm the most happy about, because I bought this shelf 1.5 years ago when I bought my whole rig, the new 80/20 rig. And it just never worked out because I didn't have an extra 80/20 arm to fit the width that I had my monitor stand posts at. And so there was nowhere I could mount it. So I tried, I don't know if you remember, I had a little caster set underneath this and the PC sitting on the ground where it could roll around, which was fine, but I couldn't walk back here. I had to step over it or unplug everything and wheel it out. So it just didn't really work. So I decided to bite the bullet and buy another arm from 8020.net, and took about 6, I ordered it last Tuesday and I mounted it today, got it this morning. So it took a week to get. I only live one state away, your mileage may vary. So I mounted that today, and not very long, half an hour maybe at the most, to get everything level. And so yes, it's perfect. And because I don't want my gaming rig falling off, just in case I or somebody else bumps it, I do have a tie down ratchet strap here, just holding it to the shelf so that it doesn't come off in any way, shape, or form. So this is probably one of the top 2 or 3 things I did to my rig that I'm most happy about, because now it gives me full clearance back there. And now the mobility of my rig is complete. The way I envisioned it from the very beginning, I can now move my rig. And that was one of the things. We had a contractor come in to do some caulking around our windows, and as you can see, my rig is right next to a window. And so I had to move my entire rig out into the middle of the room to give him access. And it wasn't a hard thing to move it, because all I had to do was unplug all the USB cables that were going to the PC or the hub, and lock down the casters, and then move things out of the way. But the problem came then putting it back. So connecting, and I know this may sound ridiculous, I have over 30 USB items plugged in to this PC. Some of those are just hard drives, but still, or flash drives or things, but I still have 31 things plugged in. And so not all of them are rig related. So it was about 20 things that I had to unplug to move the rig, because the monitor stand and the base rig that has motion are separate. They're not connected in any way because of the motion. And so, yeah, the hub was mounted to the back of the monitor stand. The rig, obviously, I didn't have a way to mount everything, USB power to it at the time. So anyway, that was one of the modifications I did as well. So I took that opportunity when I had it out to rewire my entire rig. And so I do now have I moved the USB hub and mounted it to the back side of that post. You can see all the wires right there of everything that's mounted. And then I also mounted an additional power strip to the side. So everything on the base rig that requires power is now plugged into that. And along with the power box that I have mounted to the monitor rig, because those are all my monitors, the PC power, the IR light for the Quest 2, and the battery charger, and a third power strip that is still needed just because I have a couple of other things that won't quite reach. 3 things that have big, blocks on them. One of them is the little spare monitor over here. One of them is the IR light itself. No, that one's plugged over there. Anyway, one of the hubs, things like that. So anyway, I've got about 15 things plugged in power-wise as well. But now that I've totally rewired everything, all I have to do to move, if I need to move the rig, is use the software to raise the rig with the actuators, lock down the casters, then lower the rig, which raises the pistons, and then I can move the base part of the rig out of the way. And the monitor stand has 4 casters as well, so I unlock those and I can move them independently. But the only 2 things I have to do now is unplug one USB cable from that hub that's going to the PC, and one power cable that's plugged into the wall here. for that power strip. So life is a lot easier now if I need to move anything. So that was one of the unexpected, unplanned mods that I did this time, just because I had the opportunity and had to have it all pulled out anyway. And it helped with the wire management, cable management. As you can see, especially from, some angles, it looks a lot better than others. There's always going to be some cables that are just loose and hanging that you see, especially back in that corner. That's where most everything is. But as you know from my past videos, I'm not really one who cares much about how loose cables look. But I do what I can, what I can. So I'll just give you a quick glimpse. So there's the hub connected to the upright, and then all of the cables are just resting on the wheel deck up in here, and each one of those cable ties is Velcro strap things is one item. So they're all bundled individually, they're not all bundled together, so that helps if I need to trace down a problem. I don't have to undo a whole bunch of zip ties, cut a bunch of zip tie stuff back. It allows me to find the one thing I need to work on and get to it, unplug it, replug it back in, things like that. So that is that. Just checking my list here. Obviously I have a lot of things. 3 changes I made to my pedals. And I know I probably had the most number of views on the video where I had just gotten these pedals, because they were quite popular at the time, I think. But 3 mods I've made is I've beefed up the spring on this one. I like a stiffer clutch. And so I finally found a spring that gives me the tension I want, that fits. Although it doesn't, there's not the cam effect. Like, it doesn't go over the edge. It does just a little when you're pushing with your foot. Like, it's so strong, I can't push it with just my hand unless I used both hands. So it does go over the edge just a tad, but not much. And so I will have the spring part number where I got it in my list down below. The other thing I did is I changed the position of this, where the arm connects, to the lower position. So combination with a stiffer string but a little easier leverage gives me the balance that I was looking for. I also changed the throttle tension position up to 5. And I may actually try 6, because what I found is, especially on NASCAR tracks where you're really trying to save tires on some of these 1.5-mile, 2-mile tracks, how you get on the throttle can really save your tires over a long run. And so having a little tension there makes getting on the throttle a lot smoother. And so I really liked it this week at California. I may, like I said, I may even try 6 to see if it helps even more. But I really like that. So that's the only 3 mods I've done to the pedals themselves. You might notice this right here. That's the next mod, and this is another one I'm really excited about. I've wanted to do this ever since I saw SimLab and their pedal tray, adjustable pedal tray. I just never wanted to pull the trigger. It was a little too expensive, I thought, for what it was. I mean, not for what it was. You get everything from SimLab, has high quality stuff. I get it, but shipping and everything, I just never wanted to pull the trigger. I don't know why. I pulled the trigger on so many other things, but I just didn't want to. But then I saw the video that Carl Gosling had done using a seat slider to do it yourself. And I kind of always had that in the back of my mind that it was possible. I just didn't want to go through buying one and not having it work, and undoing my rig and redoing it back if it didn't work, and wasting the money on the seat slider. But he proved that it worked pretty simply. So I bought one and I mounted it in, and it works very, very good. I love it. Now, as you can imagine, there's just a word of warning if you're going to do this. There's 4 ways you can mount this thing. Obviously, you could put it where the handle is up on this side or this side. This side would be pretty useless, I would think, as I would think you'd want to adjust it while you're sitting in the rig. But you can also adjust it this way or this way, so that the slider moves with the pedals, or the slider is stationary and the pedals move separately, depending on which way you do it. Now, the way I have it done is I lift up on the front of the handle there. The pedals slide separately. The handle part does not move. That's the part that's mounted to the base plate, the pedal plate underneath. The reason why is, and I found it's out the hard way because I tried to do it the other way, because I thought, well, why wouldn't I want that to slide with the pedals and move out of the way if I needed to adjust them? The problem with that is there's not a lot of clearance under the pedal tray. I mean, you basically have the room of the sliders themselves. And so, and just like Carl said, you have to bend this this bar a little bit to make it fit your width, but you also may have to bend it up and down a little, like he did, to make it work just right. Problem is, if I raised it, or at the time, you would push down on it. So I'd push down on it, push my pedals forward. Well, then it would snap in place, and there wasn't room then to push it down to release it, because you basically wedged it in there. So I couldn't push down and pull the pedals back forward. So I found out, okay, I've got to mount it so that the pedals move separately from the handle. So that's why I have it that. If you wanted to put more spacers to connect yours to give it plenty of room to do that, that's a perfectly viable option. I just didn't want to go through that because I have my pedal height. I had already adjusted them where I like them. I like them more of a NASCAR style. I'm not, instead of an F1 style. So my pedals are a lot lower than the bottom of my seat compared to most people. So that was why I chose it. You can choose however you want to, but I just want to let you know it is a simple, just the cost of the slider itself, which I think was 35 bucks or so. But yeah, it's a great addition, and I'm so happy I did that. The little modification I did, because my pedals are angled down, as you can see, and they move separately from the handle. When I raise the handle, I can't get my pedals to come forward unless I bend all the way over to my toes and grab this and pull it backwards. So, which was pretty impossible. So I added this, wire to the corners. So now I pull up on the handle and then pull this toward me, and it pulls the entire pedal set toward me. That just keeps me from having to go back and forth trying to get them in the right position, and I can just do it right from there. And it's red and it matches, so I was happy. And it just lays there out of the way. It's not in the way of using the pedals at all. And I just grab it, and I can reach it pretty easily from sitting that side. So that's got all the pedal stuff out of the way. Next is the rudder pedals. Let me try to get over from this side and grab my flashlight again because it's dark down in here. So I found out that, well, the reason I had never, well, if you remember before, I had a board that I would set up on here and then put my rudder pedals on top. I even made a video about how easy it was to do that. And it was easy, and that was fine. But I knew I had enough room under there if I could just reach them, but I couldn't quite reach them. When you're sitting here, knees out to here, around the stick, I just couldn't, my heels wouldn't fit down in the heels. They were just too far away. Like I said, I've got my seat a lot higher than a lot of people do probably on their rigs. So what I did is I just got 2 2x4s and put underneath. And I put a couple of bump stop screws in the back, 1 on each side and 2 in the front, so that the pedals, I can move the rudder pedals back and forth and they don't slide. And I've got a little screw, as you can see right there sticking out, that just holds tension against that hockey puck so that as I'm pushing forward, the 2x4s don't slide. Sorry about my flashlight strap there. So it just keeps them in place. And so now they're higher, I can reach them. I have room underneath the pedal tray, even with motion, because that was the part I was afraid of, is if you have motion and the rig lowers down on top of your feet while they're on there, even in its lowest position, which it is right now, my feet are on the pedals and not being touched by the pedal tray. Just barely, but enough. So that was the problem, and that 2 2x4s and a couple of bolts fixed it. That was the solution, which any good mod, that's your goal, is to fix your problem that you have with a simple, cost-effective solution. So here's the rudder pedals. Staying with the flight sim theme here, I got an extension bar for my stick. And the reason you do this is to have a finer motor control at the top. So I can move, as you can imagine, as this is longer, imagine it was 5 feet tall. I would have to move it several inches in order to move it the amount that you would only have to move it a millimeter if it was a short stick. Imagine a short joystick and then a long stick. The longer it is, you can have finer control because you can move the same amount and it will actually move the controller in your sim less. So it gives you finer control. So if you look at the high-end sticks, they're all pretty long for that reason. And in real life, I think this would be mounted on the floor of a jet, and the stick would be what is the longest, you know, all the way up to where the pilot would hold it between his legs. So I think it's true to life. And DCS is what I fly, and it has the ability to have control the curves, like an S curve to your stick, or any axis really. And so this allows me to step back to closer to a 1-to-1 ratio, which it's not 1-to-1 yet, and I'm assuming a real jet has a 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm slowly getting back closer to a 1-to-1 with this, and it helps it just be a little more realistic. And it got that big square thing out of the way from sitting up here. It was, I don't know if you remember, it was all the way up on top of the seat here. So now my legs aren't hitting that. And so it accomplished a couple of things. One was not even expected, but it is a nice addition. Also, I don't know if you can barely see, this thing is adjustable as far as twisting. So now it's more like a real stick, whereas the way it came, it mounts, it goes exactly perpendicular to the box, to the base. But yeah, this is turned now, and that's adjustable. I could, if you were left-handed, you could turn it this way. This guy makes them and sells them on eBay. He's in London or UK somewhere. And this was the item I was waiting on. It took over 3 weeks to get. I was waiting on this item before I wanted to make the video. And in the meantime, I did a couple of other mods while waiting. So that was the thing that I was waiting on. I finally got it, so able to do the video now. So because of that, I don't know if you remember, this AMPCD DDI box control, I had, you know, double-sided sticky tape onto the base plate here of the stick. Well, obviously that would be way too low. Can't even see some of the buttons, can't reach them. So I basically just turned it upside down and mounted it to the bottom of the wheel deck here. But because of that, I had to reconfigure the fan and the foot cam. But again, none of that's new. It's just had to reposition it and come up with a different solution. But the other thing is, while racing, my knee would hit the corners. And so I added just a piece of Velcro over here to the back of this, and I can adjust it up out of the way. And the other end of the Velcro just sticks to a piece I tacked here, and it holds it up out of the way. And the steering wheel, I know it may not look like it, but the steering wheel does clear that easily with no issues while it's up out of the way. And that allows me also to use the fan if I need to stay cool while racing. So that covers all of the flight sim stuff. This is nothing new here as well, I adjusted this fifth monitor. Before, when you looked at it from the other side, there was a large gap here, and you could see these brackets through it. And I just took the opportunity one day and I raised this whole arm up a little bit so that now the monitor is flush, as you can see here, and just a neater look. I'm not always about neatness, but that was just unnecessary, seeing those brackets, and so I fixed that. Okay, let me check my list and see where we are. Okay, one new thing that is actually new is this is a little mini programmable mechanical keyboard. And I was watching Shark Tank several weeks ago, and a guy was on there with the idea of selling, his keyboard had 2 keys on it, copy and paste. And the name of the product was Copy Keyboard, and it's out there on the internet if you're interested. But it just got me looking. I went online, looked at them. I just wanted to see how much it was, and it was $20 for 2 keys. And I thought, that's a little much. But then I saw there's a lot of other vendors that make keyboards with more keys, and so they're still only about $20. So the reason why this would come in handy for me, and I agree, for most people it doesn't make sense. He was marketing them toward people in the finance industry who work in spreadsheets all day and do 1 million copy pastes a day. And doing Control-C, Control-V, or right-clicking with your mouse. One button to do copy and one button to do paste would save time overall. And I get that. It's just probably wasn't a large market for him. And so he did not get any investors. But it made me think about a problem I have. And the problem I have is, and it may sound a little strange, is when I'm in VR, sometimes between races, I'm still doing stuff in Discord or typing or maybe pulling up a spreadsheet real quick. And invariably, you'll need to copy or paste something, or even more often, backspace and delete. And so because I'm between races, I'm not going to take off my entire VR headset when I'm about to go back into a race. If I'm just copying and pasting something real quick, or editing, I start typing something and need to hit the backspace key. And it is a little harder than you think to find the backspace key when you can't see the keyboard. I mean, you know it's up here, but a lot of times I hit the plus or the slash, things like that, and it was annoying because I'd hit the wrong key, and then you got to really feel and backspace again or delete key, which again, you know where they are, but when you're totally can't see, it adds time to typing anything. And so I thought, well, this would be an easy fix. And so it does. It actually, you program those, and so so this is 6, then each of these is a button, and then you push in it as a button as well. So I have backspace, delete, cut, copy, paste. This is left and right. Clicking in brings up the clipboard, which is Windows V, for pasting multiple, anytime you press copy, it saves all of those items to the clipboard, and then Windows V brings up the clipboard and you can select what you want to paste into the spot. I don't remember, or I don't think I programmed this one yet, so if you have any ideas, let me know and I'll consider it. But because I move this keyboard tray a lot back and forth to the side of the mirror, I knew cabling would be an issue, and I didn't want a piece of cable dangling between all these hinges. And so I did find this coiled USB-C cable, and so I just connect it to another. It's pretty short. Connect it to another USB cable up to the hub. So that was an inexpensive, again, solution to a problem I was having, and I've used it several times just in the last few weeks, and it works as designed. So it did solve my problem. So going back to flight sim, I did forget this. I use TrackIR for flight sim, and I use VR for racing. And there's several reasons for that that I won't go into right now, but there's advantages and disadvantages for each. And so right now, I'm still using TrackIR for flight sim. The bad thing about TrackIR is, the camera sits up there and it looks for the LEDs that you have on your headset or the clip on your cap. But if you have the one with the LEDs, then you have a wire. It's not wireless solution. And so I'd have a wireless headset with this TrackIR LED system wired to it, which is annoying because then you don't have the freedom of a wireless headset. But there's a simple solution out there, and I didn't come up with this on my own. I found a video that walked you through how to do it. The biggest thing is you have to cut the wire, and that was the hardest part for me. So I did actually cut it, and then I spliced in a USB plug and just find a charging cable so that it only has 2 wires. And you just solder those in line. And this is just a battery charger, and the great thing about this is our battery pack is it uses 2 AA batteries, and I use rechargeable AA batteries, and so it's easy. And they say it lasts for 18-20 hours. I don't know how long. I've used it several hours and haven't had to replace it yet, the batteries. But I keep batteries charged right there, so all I have to do is pop them in. And the weight that's added to the top of the headset is negligible. I don't even notice it, and it works great. And if you're wondering, yes, that's just a piece of foam that I have to use as a kind of a step off, to hold the bracket, the LED emitters away from the boom mic and where I can get to the buttons. And honestly, it helps the readability of the camera because it's on the left side. So that's what that is. That's just a step off there. Sorry, just hanging that back in place. Okay, so let's see. And that was a very inexpensive modification. That battery pack was less than $10. So yes, very worthwhile. If you're any good at soldering, don't have any fear, you can do it. For Christmas, I got a pair of gloves, driving gloves, that I had been wanting for a while. And so these are very nice gloves, race quip, that I got from a teammate. We do a Secret Santa on our race team. The only problem I had was on my steering wheel, I have a Fanatec stuff, so I have a funky switch, and I have to twist it to control the volume of crew chief, and I adjust that a lot. And so with these gloves on, I couldn't reach and twist that little knob. So I modded, just like I do everything else, and cut the fingertips out of the thumb and the forefinger. And this is moleskin, which is basically felt with an adhesive back that I just put around the opening so that they won't fray, and it's just nice and smooth. And it works perfectly. I can now reach the funky switch, but I still have the cushion in the palm of my hands for gripping the steering wheel. And yeah, so that's a great little mod I did to a free item. One of the other things I did is, and going back to the flight sim motif, this is a kneeboard, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a clipboard that you strap to your leg so that you can easily get to stuff. It's got a pen here and a pad of paper in the back where you can take notes, write down coordinates for things when you're flying military type missions. So even commercial people who fly Cessnas and small general aviation aircraft use kneeboards. A lot of them are digital now on an iPad, but the concept is still the same. So I just have a lot of sheets of procedures and controls, things that I would have to pause and go look up on, or try to remember what I had programmed for, because I have all these buttons programmed in my flight sim as well. So like this tab, that's some of the controls and what they're programmed for. So I just printed these out, laminated them, punched holes in them, used a couple of key rings, drilled a hole in the back of the kneeboard, connected it. Yeah, so it's a great knee pad or kneeboard. So I had that last time I made the video, but I didn't show it, so I figured I would include that in this update. Since it's a huge list and we're coming up on 35 minutes or so, I'll try to wrap it up. I got 3 more things. One is real simple. This is just some foam padding. When I'm flight simming, I usually use the dead pedals the most, and that's where I put my feet while I'm flying. And this metal is, 1, it's cold, and 2, it's not very comfortable. So I just added that. And that is, I use this stuff in a lot of places. Many you see, many you don't see. And it's neoprene, and it's about a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch thick, and it's sticky adhesive back. So you just cut it to the size you need, peel the back off, stick it where you want. You probably saw a couple pieces over here. This is kind of a wrist pad because there's a lip on here that hurts your wrist if you're setting it right there. So I just use that to build that up, space up. And then this is just to protect the sharp corner when I'm moving the keyboard back and forth so that it doesn't punch a hole in this cheap seat. And I have it other places. I've got a couple pieces back here behind this thing to keep it from vibrating, rattling, things like that. But I use that stuff a lot, so that's a good recommendation for easy padding. You might have noticed this when I was back here, some of the cables, but I did start using these cable labels, and they come in I don't know, it's 30 or 50. I tried to use red. I used all the red up, so I had to go to green. I think I've got all the green ones almost done, so I got to go to yellow or white next. I'm not sure. But anyway, it just labels all your cables, let you know what that is plugged in where. Makes it easy to find something if you're tracking down a solution. And yes, as you can see, there still have the bird's nest back here. It's just mostly hidden now. And I don't know if you ever paid attention, but there's a lot less items, and I have a lot more open USB ports than I ever have because everything is plugged in to the one under here or the small one right here. So that's all of the USB stuff and that part. And that may be it. Double check. Oh, okay. So the very last thing is I was watching, I'm sorry I don't have his name memorized, but I think it was Dave Cam. I think that's the name of his channel. And he's got an accent. I'm not sure if it's British or Australian. I apologize. But he did a video on cost of racing stuff and how giving people, kind of if I had to do it over again, how would I spend my money on racing rig stuff? And the ironic thing is I was just starting to put together a rig cost spreadsheet. I had done that years ago when I first started in sim racing, just because I personally wanted to keep track of what I was spending. And I just kind of let it go several years. And I decided to resurrect it and update it. And so I'm going to have that, and I'm going to have it either attached or copied and pasted in the description below. But it'll be there when you go to watch this video. But I'm going to have every single thing on this rig itemized on that, including software, PC parts, everything. The only things that are not itemized are the miscellaneous stuff like the padding, zip ties, Velcro, the Velcro ties, little nuts and bolts, or even some USB cables. Like I've started trying to itemize even the cables that I incorporated onto the rig, but there are some that I just don't remember if I had before and how much they were and things like that. So I have one line item that says miscellaneous, and it's all that kind of stuff. And it racks up over time because USB cables, you know, $10, $15 for a couple, and nuts and bolts hardware is not cheap all the time. I use good high-end gaff tape when I have to do duct tape type stuff, like this corner piece here. I have padding and then tape on top of it. That's high-end duct tape, gaff tape that's just $40 a roll. So I'm on my second roll of that in 10 years. So, you know, that's kind of the stuff adds up. The battery charger, I don't even think I have that listed actually. So little miscellaneous stuff. There is one line item for that, but everything else will be itemized. And so feel free to look at that if you have any questions. I will answer them. Just type me out. Send me a message from the video below, and I always answer anybody who has any questions. Or if you need something more specific, maybe I can make a video to show you specifically what you have a question about. But I'm happy to do so. One thing I did want to point out, this is, I'm keeping the super glue here. Oh, that was one thing I didn't mention. I super glued some of the end caps in place because getting in and out of the rig, they just knock over. If you have 80-20 rig, you know what I'm talking about. So I just super glue them in place. Now, anytime one falls out, I just super glue it in place. So I just leave this here. And super glue dries very rigid, and if I ever need to get it off, I can pop it off. It will come off, but it just doesn't fall off so easily now. And then this is my wet wipes here to wipe my face off before I put VR on. That keeps it clean for me and anybody else who's going to be using my VR. So that's what that is. My cup holder, obviously. But none of that's new, just things I may not have pointed out in the past that I wanted to highlight here today. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I will answer them as soon as possible. I know this is a long video, longest one I've ever done. I hope it uploads. If not, I will break it into 2. But if so, I hope you enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks again.